Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Furiously Curious Show. I'm your host, Calvin Rentberg. This is a show that learns about people's worldviews, beliefs, and stories from people around the world. How I grew up and what I was taught shaped me and what I believe. Now I want to learn about other people's stories, beliefs, worldviews, and how they got there. New episodes drop every other Friday. Today on the show, we have Scott Satterlee. Scott is a Green Beret veteran who served 26 years in the Special Operations Command with multiple combat tours, including Panama, Afghanistan, Iraq, and the Philippines. He also trained Special Forces soldiers in both marksmanship and close quarter battle. Scott retired out of the 1st Special Forces Group in 2016 as the lead instructor and chief operations officer. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, how's it going, Kyle?
Good. You've done a bunch of podcasts, haven't you?
Lately, yeah, I've done a few.
But more associated with you're probably the shooting sport you're into now, PRS and NRL.
Yeah. And just goofy stuff sometimes. I think we did a podcast actually with around the ARS or American Rifle Series,
yes.
which
Yeah.
I'm completely unaffiliated with.
Yes.
But it's still funny. So
or so you say.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Absolutely not.
Okay, so I want to talk about your time in the military and stuff like that. And so you wrote a book that's not published, but I read through it, and I'm gonna kind of walk through that and tell people about it. So, how old were you when you joined the military?
I was 19 when I first joined the military, and that was in '87.
And what made you want to join?
Think about that
at that time.
That's a good question. I was running out of options. I didn't really enjoy college. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I thought kind of the logical extension of that was to join the military, go on adventures, and try to figure out what I was going to do with my life.
Yeah. So you do come from a military family?
My dad served in the Navy in the late 50s, early 60s. My sister was an interrogator in the Army, and so I don't know, not really. I think my grandmother or my grandfather and my dad on my mom's side was in the Marine Corps during World War II. But other than that, not really. I mean,
so a little bit, but not a lot, kind of.
Yeah, no, I'm not like everybody's joining. They're either going to go to West Point or there is military families like that now.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, especially in the United States, where it's all volunteer. So now you have families that have a propensity to serve, and it's what they know.
Yeah. The
kids grow up with it, and the next thing you know is that you have a military family, and you see that in law enforcement, and you never really saw that with the military. But I think since we had the all voluntary force. I think we're starting to see that. We're starting to see, generations of guys going through. Good example, old Sergeant Major I had, Greenway. He served, him and his son were in Afghanistan at the same time. So, I mean, now
wow.
you have multiple generations,
Yeah, I always forget that about the Iraq War, which I think it started in 2003. But so you had guys that were in their 20s at that time, and kids that were 9 years old, and then 10 years later they were going over, and yeah, it's interesting. Yep. So when you went straight into Army Rangers, is that correct? Before you became a Green Beret?
Yeah. Yep, I went. Well, it's a kind of a long story, but so I went straight in with the Ranger contract. Went to Fort Benning, basic training, airborne school, and then RIP. Range Indoctrination Program, and then came to 2nd Ranger Battalion up here at Fort Lewis, which was kind of nice because I'm from the area. So
yeah,
it was kind of like going home. Made made the first year there a little easier.
Yeah.
But then I actually got out of the service for 3 years after the Gulf War. I got out, and I came back in.
And why'd you get out? Why'd you want to get out?
Another good question. I was pretty burnt out and kind of sore that, we didn't like my unit didn't go to the Gulf War. I mean, it seemed like we were training like crazy for, what seemed like really cool missions. And then, we wake up and, the war's over, and a lot of guys, guys were stop lost. Basically what that means is that guys that were scheduled to get out couldn't get out, even though they wanted to.
Yeah.
So when the stop loss was lifted, it's like all my friends just vanished like that. And, and it was also one of those times it was, so we were working super hard, training all the time. And then, we didn't go anywhere. And then after that, it's just like this giant emotional roller coaster that you're on, like, oh, we're going. No, we're not. We're going. No, we're not. So, it just takes a toll. And at that point, I'd met Diana, my wife, and I was like, hey, let me see if I can reintegrate back into the civilian world, use my college fund to go get my degree, et cetera, and see where I go from there.
Nice. And so for the people that don't know, Army Ranger, how does that compare to what level is that in the Army when it comes to Special Forces, or like the kind of jobs you do? Where does Army Ranger fall in?
Yeah, at the time, so the U.S. Army Rangers is part of USASOC, or United States Army Special Operations Command, which falls under JSOC, and the USASOC, the giant 4-star conglomerate.
Yeah.
But they're at the time we were elite light infantry, and we did airfield seizures and stuff like that. Their mission has changed quite a bit over the last 30 years, since or 40 years almost since I was there. So, and it's you would say they're probably are in as far as like there's still organization, their structures still a lot like a regular infantry regiment.
Yeah.
But they're split up in 3 different battalions, and they have a rotation. A lot of it is to support the national force. I mean, they do a lot of stuff on their own now too.
But they're mainly Special Forces missions and that kind of thing.
Yeah, special operations, right? So they're doing conventional. They're basically doing conventional missions.
Okay.
In a special operations environment.
Okay.
If that makes any sense? So you have, your conventional raid, recon, ambush type, or kill capture, where they're trying to go capture bad guys, kind of a thing. And then, what the big separator between like a Ranger element or Delta or SEALs or Special Forces is the Special Forces. We are our schooling is a little bit different, and we're really kind of lashed into unconventional warfare. So which is
what's an example of that
thing? An example of that would be we do what's called a by, with, and through mission. So we do really 5 missions. We do have direct action. We have unconventional warfare. We have FID, or foreign internal defense. We have strategic reconnaissance and terminal guidance. So, or PRDA, so personnel recovery. But unconventional warfare is really seeing, to not to get too down into the weeds with it, but like our final 6 weeks in school was to go help a guerrilla force overthrow a government.
Okay.
I mean, that's something that we're trained to do. Look at the latent incipient phase all the way through war of movement, where we can organize an auxiliary force, a guerrilla force, and an underground government.
Yeah.
So it's it's just an extra. It's the unconventional aspect of it, and then we're also language and we're language trained and geographically oriented.
Yeah. So you told me earlier about a couple of months ago about a mission you did just by yourself. Was that a Green Beret mission or was that an Army Ranger mission? I think Afghanistan.
That was typically the solo stuff that's going to be on the SF side of the house.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you go become an Army Ranger. You leave for 3 years. How long were you in before you left?
I was in 4 years.
4 years. And you left for 3 years, and then you go become a Green Beret?
No, I got out for 3 years, and I played golf, of all things. And then,
but after 3 years of that, then you went back.
Pretty quick to kind of make a living doing that. So, and I missed it. I missed being around the people. I didn't really miss the work as much as I did the camaraderie and being around. Good company makes terrible work seem pleasant. That makes
fair enough.
So,
but you didn't go back and become an Army Ranger. You applied then after 3 years to become a Green Beret.
No, I went back into the regular Army and I went to a long range surveillance unit for the 101st, which was a really cool and really kind of a stepping stone into the smaller team, and we were fulfilling it wasn't strategic reconnaissance, but it was tactical, and that really kind of led in. Plus, one of the things about it was you're right next to 5th Special Forces Group there on Fort Campbell. And we worked together. We did jumps together. They did a couple of trainings for us. One was they actually brought in the committee from SEER, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape School, and we actually got to go through SEER as a unit, which was really neat. And then one of the scuba teams put us through water infiltration course down in Florida, which was, it was pretty neat. We had a really good working relationship with the unit over there at 5th Group, so it was just seemed kind of the natural progression to go from what I was doing to selection, and then.
And when was your first combat mission? Because you left early because you didn't get to see much action. When did you really start seeing action?
Well, my first combat experience was in Panama in '89. We jumped into Rio Hato airfield.
And so, as your first mission, was it all you thought it was going to be, or?
It was more and less. You watch movies and you're like, oh man, this is so scary, and then you get there and it's like, this isn't quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. So,
did you have experiences later on where you thought, okay, the movies make it seem like it's a cakewalk, and it's a lot harder than that?
Yeah, it's in a way, right? So, because movies last 2 hours at the most, and then I think when we went to Afghanistan, I spent 5.5 months before I got a break, and and then I went back for another 3.
Yeah,
it was I just, how many times, and it's like guys are like, hey, do you want to have lamb chops? And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't care how tasty they are. Can't stand the smell of goat anymore. Just how many times do you have to get sick on food in order to, what I mean? Because we were eating on the local economy there, so. So
you're fair enough, yeah. So the Army didn't fly in much food. It was how much? We
got resupplied by air for 5 months.
Wow.
So food's not really on the list for that. Potable water is. I mean, we got. I think every second or third night we were getting, airdrops of bottles of water.
Okay.
Because Afghanistan, there isn't a ton of water to begin with.
Yeah.
And then the water that is there is pretty nasty. So.
Yeah. So you, where did you spend the majority of your service? Was that Afghanistan? Actually,
it was. I spent most of my service in 1st Special Forces Group, stationed at Fort Lewis, and then also stationed at Okinawa.
Okay.
So I've done my only trip to Afghanistan was I was actually detailed out to a 3-letter agency as an augmentee.
That's right, because that's where your friend Nathan Chapman passed away, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he didn't get full honors, or he didn't get recognized as a death in combat because you guys were working for through that organization.
Right. Well, just recently they they like quasi attached him to 5th Group in order for him to receive his military and for his wife to receive his military benefits. And then just recently, I think within the last couple of years, Nate got a star at Langley. So
nice.
That's pretty cool. That they, it takes a while, I guess, but I mean, they finally in the service of.
So how'd that go? So that was October 2001.
That was actually January. That was 4 January 2002.
So you came in there. You got in there in October.
To theater in November, and then we were working in Pakistan for 3 or 4 weeks, and then got to Afghanistan in December sometime.
So walk me through that. So September 11 happens. Where are you when that happens?
I was actually my team and I were doing a USAFIC best team competition. So U.S. Special Forces Command, they had we have active duty groups, and then we have National Guard groups. And what they did, they were doing it once a year where they would get the best team in each group. So there would be we'd have a competition to see who the best team in the group was. And then that team would go forward to North Carolina, and they had all kinds of. It was actually a really fun event. We were doing, if you were a medic like I was, just to see how well you'd cross train your team. They would have, like casualties for them to treat, and then if the engineers, would just see how well they cross trained us. We'd have to develop this or build this, giant thing out of telephone poles in order to lift really heavy stuff. And it's just kind of neat how, they tested, how well we all, functioned under a, high stress environment, and, how well we could think on our feet.
Yeah.
And it was up in, God, where was it? It was in Pisgah National Forest. So up in the Appalachian Trail. So it was pretty steep. I mean, I think we walked, I don't know, maybe 70, 80 kilometers, something like that. But we found out from some guy. So, and it's just kind of random. We're like walking along, and we'd seen, I don't know if you've seen The Deliverance, right? I mean, everybody's seen the kid on the porch with the banjo and stuff. Well, we were walking along, and this guy shows up, and we're trying to understand what he's saying to us, because they actually do have a little bit of a different language there.
Yeah.
He's like, "You boys hear anything about, airplanes hitting the World Trade Centers?" And we're sitting there thinking, okay, this has got to be some sort of play of the problem, right? Now,
okay, it's part of the training mission, you mean?
Right, part of the training, right?
Okay, yeah.
And we're like, man, I wonder what's. No way, So we get to our RV, we set up our communications. And, we get this sit rep that says, stay in place, until the morning, no more, don't move around. And then we set comms up in the morning, and they're like, continue with the play of the prog, the training event. But the World Trade Center went down. Like, God dang. So, the next thing and we couldn't get back Fort Lewis because we were out in North Carolina because all the air travel was down. So,
that's right.
We're all kind of wondering what's going to go on,
Were you excited? Did you right away think, okay, this means combat for me?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's like, okay, time to go to work, like for real.
Yeah.
So
you, after a couple of days, you fly back stateside. And you start.
We were already stateside, but we got back to Fort Lewis. Of course, we got all of our debriefings and everything like that, and then like, go buy some extra life insurance kind of a thing. And then within a couple weeks, the bombing campaign started.
So back up. So when you said that buy the extra life insurance, that was a common thing, guys?
Yeah. If they were smart, they would.
Wow.
Because the Army's is only, I think at the time was 400,000 or something like that, and that you can go through that pretty quick. So
when, as this is happening, how does this work with your wife Diana? Like, honey, we're gonna go buy some more life insurance because I'm heading out.
She knew.
Fair enough.
So yeah, there's no. It's like it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's when we have to deploy a little sooner than later because and the way it kind of went down was our sergeant major, battalion sergeant major, Jody Macy. He came by, said, "Hey, I want you to go do something. And it's not in our AOR." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds cool."
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, it's and you can do stuff on verbal orders like go buy an airplane ticket to Washington D.C. and call this dude when you get there. That was it. That was my marching orders. So
that's what you did.
Yep. Like we got 3 or 4 days. It was Nate Chapman, Ed Duke, and myself. They got picked out of the group to go. So, and of course they had to see what our records were. Basically, it was like, "Hey, have you ever been on a horse before?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, we have a horse family."
Yeah.
And then, I was a medic, and then I had dropped concrete bombs in Korea like 6 months before. So like you're good.
So they picked you guys from the experience you guys had.
Right.
So was you three flew to Washington?
Yep. Yeah, we flew to Washington D.C. We called the guy. We linked up with him, and after that, it was just kind of a whirlwind of activity where, go buy this. Basically, we had to set up everything from radios to guns and camping gear from nothing. So it was for 6 people. So
why didn't the Army provide you this stuff? Just because they wanted like no record when you guys go in, or?
Yeah, exactly. It's just cash. It was all cash based.
Okay. So then you go in November. You go to Pakistan first.
Yeah, we go to Pakistan first. Mm-hmm.
And so that movie that came out a couple years ago of those first 11 guys that went up to Afghanistan. That was
nickel.
Yeah, that was a couple of weeks before you guys.
Yeah, yeah, pretty close to about the same time actually. I think they were in the north while we were trying to develop routes and people to actually go work with in the south. So we had a working relationship. It was not the greatest, but we had a working relationship with the Northern Alliance.
That's right. Okay.
And that was our access, right? So, through Dostum and a whole bunch of other the warlords that have been fighting against the Taliban, they had access. Now, getting access to the southern part, the Pashtun areas of Afghanistan, was more of a chore. It took us a lot longer to try to develop somebody down there that would actually host us.
So you fly in civilian planes?
An event for them.
So you fly in civilian planes to Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Or to Pakistan? And
we flew into Pakistan in the C-17. So, okay. I mean, there was not that much going on at the time. There was like 12 of us and 2 pallets in the back of a C-17. So, we could spread out, sleep on the floor, etc. But we did get into Afghanistan in a very small 2-engine prop plane.
Yeah.
And I think we were actually the first folks to land on Kabul International. And we had to do a couple circles around it. So this our pilot was an ex-Navy fighter pilot. So we're flying around looking for something that he can stick his plane on, and then there's craters. And we right at the last bit of light, we're looking around and trying to see if there's anything on the air, long enough that we could actually stop. So
Because they had been bombing weeks earlier.
Yeah, because of the bombing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And but he found a spot, and he stuck this airplane. I've never seen it landing like that. I mean, it's like all of a sudden I'm like reaching for the oh shit bars, like holy shit, man, we were going straight down.
Yeah.
And then at the last second, he just pounds this thing onto the on the airfield. It was like, so that's what it's like to land on a aircraft carrier.
Nice. And so where do you go from there? You have your mission, and you guys start going heading towards the south to try to build these relationships?
Actually, yeah, we still didn't have access. So they were doing raids and stuff like that, but we had no permanent access in the past Gardez and further south towards Pakistan, basically from what is that, Peshawar all the way across. I think we had the one area in Kandahar that the Rangers had taken earlier, and that's it. But that wasn't by invite.
Okay.
So what we were looking for host nation, or we were looking for a Pashtun warlord that would host us.
Okay.
That would invite us down there.
Yeah.
Because without that,
and you guys are tenting this whole time? You're staying in people's homes, or?
No, we were staying up in Kabul. We were staying at the Ariana Hotel at the time.
Okay.
It was we had some sandbags and a few guys guarding it. That's it. I mean, it was no electricity.
Yeah.
When you're flying around at night, on your nods, you could see a little bit of lights, all just candlelight or fires. I mean, at the time there's no running water, there was no power, no electrical grid at all. It was just,
Is that still because of the Russians back in the 80s and stuff that it was so bad?
No, the Russians had done quite a bit. In fact, the Ariana Hotel was this monstrous Russian building, and it was very well built. You could see pictures every once in a while of people walking around Kabul, Afghanistan, in ladies in skirts going to college with books in their hands, men wearing Western style clothing. Now it's in the 60s, right? So part of it, the Afghan-Russia war, and then the Taliban was just,
really screwing things up, yeah.
Pretty harsh, right?
So you, when was your first real combat mission? Was that when Nate passed away, or was that?
It was actually the night before.
Okay.
So we had finally gotten a guy that would bring us down there.
Yeah.
And of course, he's rivals with probably 2 or 3 other warlords in the area. So we tried to get as much stuff done in the first day that we were on the ground that we could. So we had done I had come off of we were basically doing a survey of the airfield just to see what it could land, how hard the surface was, measure off the 4 corners, and at least get it set up as a drop zone initially, right? Because we knew we were going to bring in supplies and try to land it.
Yeah.
Because it's easier, better, and you don't lose cargo. Because I think at the time we were probably 1 in 10 parachutes were failing.
Wow.
On those on the bundle drops. Yeah, so you'd end up having to,
So you'd have like a little rock falling from the sky once in a while.
Yeah, something that weighs like 4,000 pounds. It's the ground. It's, and then it's full of water too, so it's just it turns into this giant water balloon. Pow, right?
Wow, that must have been interesting.
But yeah, so we'd gotten that sorted out, and then we had gone out to check out a possible AQ safe house. There's a whole bunch of SIGINT coming out of this one area.
So how did you connect? I missed how you got connected to the warlord.
This is when Nate got killed.
Okay.
And so we checked it out, and it turned out to be a rival warlord's like their house. So at that point, trying to kind of defuse the situation and back out, we just kind of climbed in the vehicles and took off. But they were pretty smart about it. We'd basically gotten all the way back, and it wasn't too far from the compound we were staying at, but there's this one spot that went down into a ditch and came back up out. So there's this automatic spacing between vehicles created by this obstacle, and they shot Nate's car up right in that obstacle. So, basically everybody in that vehicle except for one got hit. Nate was hit the worst, but the Afghani driver was hit. Brad, one of the guys we were working with, got hit. Nate, obviously, and then another guy, I don't know his true name, got hit, or didn't get hit actually.
So I'm trying to find the timeline here. So you get connected with the warlord, you go over there, and then you want to get connected with another warlord, and that's where things went south, or how?
Yeah, the two warlords were rivals. So
okay. So why would you go see the other one?
My take on it, and after spending 6 more months there talking to guys that are Afghanis.
Yeah.
My take on it is that the rival warlord, not the one we were with. So we were with Zakim Khan at first.
Okay.
And then Pacha Khan was one of the rival warlords there, Pacha Khan Zadran. And we had been talking to him in Kabul a few days prior, but he was just like prickly, super hard to work with. God, he was just bombastic. I mean, he's just like, nobody really wanted to work with this guy. We kind of knew we were going to have to.
How did you communicate with him? He knew English, or you guys were?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Both those guys spoke English very well. And they were probably Pakistani ISI. One of them, I think one of them was not obviously, but he was on payroll with Pakistan for sure. Anyway, I looked at it. It wasn't the Haqqani network shooting at us. They don't do anything that fast. We've been on the ground for like 48 hours. The Afghanis would drink tea for 48 hours before they even talked about planning a combat mission against us. So the chances of it being the Haqqani network shooting at us is like zero.
Yeah.
So what that means to me is that it was Pacha Khan's dudes shooting at us in order to leverage our safety for money.
Okay.
And that's the bottom line. We were getting extorted, which is fine. I mean, that's why we brought a whole bunch of money anyway. And, there's, they always talk about, you want to follow white collar crime, follow the money. If you want to find a terrorist, find the money, follow the money. Just
same thing.
Just hand it out to them, give it to them, and see where it ends up.
Yeah. So you leave this second guy's house. You drive back. You get stuck in that obstacle. Nate's truck gets shot up there, and so you're right behind him.
No, I'm way out in front of him.
Oh, okay.
I'm already at basically it's like we heard from the radio that Nate's vehicle got hit. So now we're kind of waiting for his vehicle to get in there. And we're basically getting ready to load up in case it didn't make it.
Okay.
We're gonna go grab him.
Yeah.
But within about 45 seconds to a minute, his vehicle had come through the gate.
Okay.
And then we were able to start working on everybody.
Yeah. So you're the medic, so you're in there right away.
Yeah. Actually, there's two of us. There was Nate Duke, Ed Duke, and myself. But it took. So Brad was shot through the chest. We were able to stabilize him. The Afghani, we were able to stabilize him. I got to him the following day to kind of clean him up and evaluate. But
yeah.
we could tell right away Nate was in bad shape.
Yeah. Where was Nate hit?
He was hit. He was shot through the pelvis.
Okay.
So and when we were trying to pull him out of the vehicle, I could tell that his pelvic girdle was compromised. Okay. So the bullet had busted bones and stuff in there. So
yeah. So you guys start working on him, but pretty soon you realize that they got him.
We had about 50-minute time between when we activated um, the helicopter from Kabul. Is a
Okay.
50-minute flight,
Okay.
so we were able to keep them around just until before the helicopter got there. We got the bleeding stopped,
Yeah.
but you can't lose that much blood and survive for more than about an hour.
Fair enough.
And
So so this was the first friend you lost, right? In,
yep.
so and how do you process this? Like he gets picked up, he gets taken away in the helicopter. What, like, how do you go forward? Were you on the next combat mission right away? Your mind's
I just stayed awake for like 3 or 4 days. I don't know if there's a way to there. I don't think there's a way to process it. I think part of, I think writing that book was part of the process.
yeah.
It's I finally felt a place in my life where I felt safe enough to, put my thoughts and feelings down.
Yeah.
Without having to go back to them, right? So, without, I guess, without, I guess, you have a vulnerability, right? And it's kind of an innate vulnerability. You have it as a kid, right? And it's just these, you always have this, these feelings of, hard to say. Well, but then when you know that you're in a position that you can't really confront those feelings, you're going to have to put them off until, you have enough time to process. And so going from Afghanistan to, back home to a regular team and then off to Oki to the CRIF, never really gives you an opportunity to confront the feelings to begin with, because you're like, I'm just going to have more, where, I've had, quite a few. Obi Koloth, a bunch of guys actually have been killed, and, guys that are good friends of mine. So it's kind of like, let's put that over on a shelf for now. It's not doing me any good.
Deal with it later.
Yeah.
And so were you able to make it to Nate's funeral?
Try not to get to a point where I have more guys that, I know or care about or I'm responsible for, end up like that. So,
from what I read, Nate's funeral was a week later. Were you able to make it to that at all, or was there any sense? Nothing?
I didn't even get a chance to talk to Diana for about a week.
Wow.
One of the stories that kind of came out of this, and I didn't, like, Diana was super, super pissed at my commander. I thought, but anyway, so the story is the next day it's all over the news, and my commander got into his uniform and went down to where Diana was working and like walked into her office, and she was freaking out.
Oh no.
And he went down there just to tell her that I was okay. I was like, so, but seeing him walk through the door in uniform,
that's not,
because they hadn't released any names yet.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay, so the news just said at the time one guy got hit. Okay. Wow.
And she knew that I was, she knew where we were going. I couldn't tell her where I was going, but
yeah. What are some of your favorite memories of Nate?
Oh man, so used to do this really good Arnold Schwarzenegger rendition.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of like get to the chopper, just like that. And he'd always do it at like the weirdest time, not weirdest, but when it could have the most hilarious effect possible.
Yeah.
Like anyway, the guy was he's kind of insane, really funny dude, but also really competent. I mean, with radios and computers and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, man, how do you know this stuff? So
he would have been a social media wizard today.
Oh my goodness. I don't think he was a social media wizard
back then. It wasn't, it didn't exist,
he was
but yeah.
all over. he was all over computers and being able to do cameras and I mean just crazy stuff.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting here you talk about this because I think there's a lot of, I think a lot of guys do bury it and never talk about it. So did it take writing the book to help you process it, or had you processed it before, or was it like half?
No, I think that the book really helped. Most of the guys started it, years before, and I was just writing, short stories more than anything, and that's kind of how this book is set up. It's set up as a series of short stories.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily in chronological order. For the most part, it is, but it's kind of a little history lesson, and then some of the stuff, and some of it's like I thought it was super funny. I mean, it's in a dark sense of humor, kind of funny, but
yeah.
So, and then it's just you look back at stuff, and you're just kind of like, what the, I mean, there's some very correlative stuff. So, like right now, we just created a youth bulge, right? With our locking down our economy and saying, don't go to work, you guys stay home,
Yeah.
And youth bulge is what we created in Iraq in 2004 when they just completely disbanded the whole army. I was like, who thought that was going to go well? It's like you can see that shit coming from a mile away. It's like, okay, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right. But so, in hindsight, it was always 2020. But I was saying that was a bad idea, and when they were talking about doing it, I was like, come on, just keep them on the payroll, keep them happy.
Yeah, keep them working.
Yeah, take the few that are bad, and re-educate them or whatever you want to do with them. But yeah,
you start chapter 5 with a quote from Albert Einstein. It says, "The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result." I thought that was pretty interesting. You put that in there. So, but it made me wonder more about. Do you think America going into war and trying to, as some people say, police? Do you think that's what they're doing?
Yeah, I think that's why I put that quote in there, is because it's kind of like, there's got to be more to it. I'm like, I can put my tinfoil hat on and just be like, maybe it's the military-industrial complex telling us to go to war in order to keep making bombs and keep people at work. I have no idea, but it seems like we do the same thing in different places all the time. And it's one of those, like, one of my favorite memes. I get a kick out of it and chuckle at it every single time, is they've got these tanks and guys lined up looking all in the same direction. And
I got that quote. Let me read that quote. I think you put it in the book. Here, one of my favorite memes is a picture of an entire U.S. combat brigade lined up, guns pointed. The commander says, "What country is that?" The XO standing next to him says, "I don't know, but let's free the F out of it." Every person,
that's right. Let's free the out of it.
Every person out there should have democracy shoved down their throat. Not every culture is set up for democracy. Culturally, most of the Pacific Rim is dominated by strong families where the grandmother collects the profits of everyone in the family and distributes it where it's most needed. There's no voting, so socialism works there quite well. Everyone understands it.
Yeah, and that's, you look at pretty much all of your Asian countries are kind of set up that way. I mean,
so in hindsight, you think we should have just...
It's a matriarchal. Mm-hmm.
So Iraq was a mistake? In your opinion?
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe going to Iraq initially, maybe not a mistake, but the way we executed it was definitely, there's a bunch of mistakes made while we were doing that.
Yeah.
Again, too, it's like you look at Afghanistan, and it was one of the things, it's like we could go all in on this thing from the beginning and bring the conventional military in there, or we could keep it the way we were doing it from the beginning, have a very light footprint,
yeah,
personnel wise, don't own any property. The first thing you want to do to piss off an Afghani is tell them that they shoot at each other. You're like, oh, you grew wheat on my property, and they'll start launching freaking RPGs at each other like crazy, right? No, that's
and we think these riots in America are bad.
We go there and we set up a base. I'm like, you think they're not going to shoot at us? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
it's the dumbest shit I ever saw. Or in the United States or Canada for that matter. I mean, if somebody came in and occupied the U.S., I'd shoot at them every single day. I'm like,
yeah.
What do you expect?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So Trump's whole thing is he wanted to pull out of everything, basically. I think yesterday he announced he's even leaving Germany. So you're for that, having less of a footprint in the rest of the world, protecting your own country at home, but
we have to be engaged. I'm not sure. I think, and there is a peacetime engagement plan, right? So, and that's one of the things that Green Berets do during times of peace is that we're constantly engaging in countries. So, example, the countries I've been to: Malaysia, Japan, Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, Cambodia, Laos, Australia. I mean, we're constantly working with these folks and engaging with them. And that's kind of what China's doing now, which is kind of an interesting segue into you can do peacetime engagement without owning a base.
Yeah,
right.
Somewhere.
I think we look at those as kind of a strategic step off point, but
not always the case.
What does it cost?
Yeah. One I forgot to ask earlier, and I'm curious about this because I don't know very much about the Army. Green Beret is what you were the last part of your career. What is that compared to Navy SEAL, which everyone knows is special operations? That's what's all over the media and the movies and stuff like that. Green Beret, you don't hear much about. Is that the same level in the Army? How does that work?
Different jobs. There's so the Navy Special Warfare. You've got I think 10 without getting into numbers, they've got teams, SEAL teams, and you've got even numbers and odd numbers, West Coast and East Coast, and they are they're the Navy component to United States Special Operations Command, or USASOC.
Yeah.
And then you have they kind of do like their I guess you'd call them a white side SEAL team. They're more of they can do everything from direct action to diver interdiction stuff. Most of what they'll focus on is their maritime interdiction. So raiding boats.
Yeah.
To their more traditional missions where you have the Rangers, which is more of your elite light infantry that can be tasked to do a wide variety of things, but they're kind of what was the word I used before? They're conventional.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
conventional special operations, and then you have Dev Group and Delta, which they're what we would call a national asset, or they're tier 1 elements, and they both have kind of a different role. It's very similar, but it's different. So, and they'll offset. So, example, Blue, which would be the Navy, they were in Afghanistan most of the time, and Green, which is the Army, was typically in the Middle East, Iraq, Syria, etc. So it's kind of and what happens is there's enough work out there that everybody can stay more busy than they could possibly want to. So to try to share the load, you kind of separate out the tasks. And then within special forces, you have typically a direct action company, which I was in for 6 years. That augments at the TF level what either Delta or what Green or Blue does.
Okay.
And then you have white side or regular SF teams that can do everything from be augmenting DIA, NSA, CIA, all the way to doing VSO or village stabilization ops out in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
In 2 or 3 guy elements.
And
right?
is the training for these guys all the same? So, like, for example, everyone knows about Hell Week with the SEALs. Like for Green Berets, similar type of training, 12-week thing and they.
No, our training is a little longer. So we've got our selection process is about a month.
Okay.
And then the Q course can be anywhere from about 18 months to 24 months, depending on what. If you're a 18 Bravo, which is a weapons guy, you're going to be in like an 18-month training pipeline. And then if you're a medic like I was, it could be it's at least 2 years. Because
Nice.
you have 6 weeks for small unit tactics, which is everybody does the same stuff, and you learn how to be an infantry guy basically.
Yeah.
And then you have your MOS portion,
MOS being.
which is your job. So
Okay.
if you're a communicator or an 18 Echo, you're going to go learn how to all the radios, computers, everything. If you're a weapons guy in 18 Bravo, you're basically going to learn how to do everything from an AK-47 to a mortar, right? So, and then if you're a engineer, you're going to learn how to build stuff, do everything from carpentry to electrical to plumbing to explosives.
Yeah. Huh.
How to blow it up, basically. And then you're intel guys. So once you're basically trained, and that's it too. And that's the crazy thing about it, right? It's like you get out of school and you put a Green Beret on, and and you get to a team, and you're barely functional. Right, there's so much more to learn about how to do your job.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's probably the way it is with everybody. I mean, when you get through a bit of training, it's like now you just barely know how to do something.
I think it's most things in life, right? And even you start a new job after 6 months, you still really know what's going on.
Right.
Unless you're flipping burgers at McDonald's.
I got this degree in chemistry. Now what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the book, are you working on getting published? Where are you at on it?
I'm still kind of hesitant, and honestly, there's some pretty raw feelings, still in this thing. So, and it's not. I mean, I don't think I've finished it very well. I mean, you read it and you're like, was your finish supposed to fizzle like that? I mean, I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
But I'm sure if you hook up with a publisher, they'll help you piece it together and stuff like that, and
Right.
take out some details and add some more.
Yeah, it's actually really fun. I've read it a couple times up to the end. It's super fun, and then it's kind of like I'm just like I have writer's block. I mean, how do I finish this thing?
Yeah.
But then again, it's like, do I need to finish it? That's the other question. It's like, why don't I just leave it hanging out there and then I can, I don't know, blog or something. I don't know, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could come out with a whole bunch of short stories. That'd be interesting as well. But I think it is important for people to read this stuff because it allows you to understand veterans, I guess,
Right.
better. Because a lot of us aren't. There's one quote that I wanted to talk about. I'll read it here. It's gotten to the point where I don't even want to tell people I'm a veteran anymore. I don't want to be thanked for my service. I'm not alone either. More and more vets are getting sick of it. It's to the point now where it feels almost patronizing. On a flight, I actually saw someone in first class try to give up their seat up to a soldier in uniform. The soldier actually thanked the man wholeheartedly, but turned it down. He just wanted to do his flight like a regular person, just a dude. So I guess unpack that part for me. And
Oh yeah, that's so. It's kind of like so you look at how like the returning Vietnam veterans were treated, and it's like, oh, that was bullshit. I mean, that was pretty bad. They didn't have a choice. We did. We had a choice, and that doesn't make us better or worse. It just makes it different. And it also, it's like, people are going the opposite direction or too far in one direction, right? It's like the pendulum is swung completely way over to the right, where you know, people are almost doing too much for us. We're just, just regular folks. We just, I don't really feel like I've done anything that warrants that. I mean, it's like, dude, you got a first class ticket. Sit and enjoy it, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Yeah.
I didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
And then you also have some vets that have gone too far in one direction as well. It's like, it's like they're thumping their chest and they're like, I'm a vet, you owe me. And it's like, I'm damaged. And I'm like, please, dude, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like one of my better buddies, no legs, George Ortiz. I mean, he doesn't whine and cry about nothing. He's got like 3 fingers left. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
come on, man. And you got somebody that, has all their faculties. And I'm like, I get it, man. Maybe your brain isn't right anymore.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But don't make everybody else suffer around you for it. I'm like, that's not why you joined.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of why. So
what would you say to regular civilian population when they meet someone like yourself? Just don't even ask about it. Just regular dude doing his thing.
Yep, I'd rather just be like that than, I mean, it is fun to tell stories once in a while, because every once in a while something will come up and I'm like, I don't remember this one time.
Well, my favorite story you told me, maybe you can explain it because I probably don't explain it well, but you're in this firefight. You showed me the video, and I think it was in December, and it's pitch black. There's like crazy firefight going on, and all of a sudden it gets quiet, and you're like, hey, buddy, you want a Jolly Rancher?
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, like, it's full-on firefight again, and I'm like, what? It's like you're at the
so
park,
random.
and you're asking your son if he wants a Jolly Rancher, but no, you're in the middle of a firefight.
That's right. So we're in Myra Mac, and we're doing a combined mission with Navy Special Warfare Group 10.
Okay.
And we're trying to actually capture Qasem Soleimani for real. Like
the guy that Trump killed last year in that airstrike.
Yeah. We've been trying to kill that guy for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What year was this?
So this was in 2007.
Okay.
So we missed this dude, and I think somehow we got compromised on the way in, either the rotors, or we had rolled these two guys up. They were on a bridge, and we just flexed up and took the radios away. But as soon as they had radios, that should have kind of clued me into, we're probably compromised. They probably know we're coming, but fuck it, we'll go anyway.
Yeah.
And we get into town, and it's just like machine gun erupts everywhere. So we occupy a couple houses, and we're like, okay, let's figure out what we got to do. Anyway, it's going to get light. It's about 3 a.m, and we have to get to.
And where was this exactly? Where was this again?
This was on the Iranian border.
Okay.
In between Baghdad and Basra.
Okay.
So
it's 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's no way to get there, by road because they had it all mined. So we had to fly and walk. But so where this came about was just like, okay, we're getting ready to get out on the street and run, and hopefully nobody gets hurt, nobody gets shot, but there's still kind of an active firefight going on. We have the task force guys, basically doing missile runs and gun runs on, folks moving around in the street out in front of where we plan on going. And this is actually in July. So it's hot. I mean, it cooled down to like 101. So it's still very hot. Like just smoking hot. We've been at this for a little while, and we're like, you can't carry enough water. I mean, what are you going to do? Carry 5-gallon jugs with you? Yeah. So we're kind of all out of water. The mouth is dry anyway because it's like, okay, this could be really bad. Yeah. But we got to go do it anyway. Yeah. Because the choices were get out in the street and run to the HLZ, or stick around all day. And if we stuck around all day, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. So at that point, let's get out on the road and run. And, guys, we're starting to line up. I'm going to get a count of everybody going out. And, guys are looking like, hey, man, it's not that bad. And I was like, I got this pocket full of Jolly Ranchers because I used to carry that stuff. Because when we were doing sensitive site exploitation on a house we just raided, there's typically kids. And if you give them something like that, they'll stop crying. So
I should get some for my son.
Yeah, here you go. And they'll be like, oh, man, they'll sit there in the corner and just sucking on this thing. It's like, sweet, okay, at least somebody around here is happy.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I got this pocket full of Jolly Ranchers, and the best kind, they're the hot cinnamon ones. Because when your mouth is super dry, that thing just makes you feel good. So I just asked the guys, hey, anybody want a Jolly Rancher? And they're like, so.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you don't, I don't know, just that not being part of that world or knowing what that world at all it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
How did you guys get out of that situation?
So a guy named Danny Nissel and his team took off. We all piled out of this one area, and his team, and then a guy named Kyle Reisbeck, his team, they basically we had this kind of run and gun leapfrog gunfight going on for about the first 6 or 7 blocks. And then once we got past, we basically broke out of encirclement, and then we could get out to the open area and squat down and, and wait for the helicopters to come.
Yeah. Huh. So how do you view the afterlife? So you're in a lot of combat, you take life and stuff like that. How do you view that when that happens? Do you, like, personally, what's your view on that, and how do you experience having had to do that?
That's a good question. I don't really think about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily bother me.
Yeah.
The only time it bothers me is when, folks that shouldn't have gotten killed or hurt were, because they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time doing stupid shit, and that's just that happens.
Yeah.
And that's the only time it bothers me. And that's, but our guys did really good. Didn't have a whole lot of that going on. So it's just very, very rare, that, folks would get mixed up and be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. So you personally, do you believe in, like, heaven and hell? Were your own personal beliefs, were they a big part of your life, especially in the military? I know a lot of guys would carry a Bible with them, or they would hold on to it more as they went into these missions, just as a sense of security or a greater, higher power, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think being in a situation like that will amplify your faith, without a doubt. So, but yeah, I mean, we had, we'd bring the unit chaplain over, if anybody, I think one guy, it was particularly bad, but, one guy, we brought the chaplain over and gave him a little bit of a timeout, but for the most part, I think, guys, I think we understand that, there's, it's just kind of part of life is death. And, you could just, you choose, you make a choice on how you go out. And I think that's one of the big things with, as far as my faith goes. And I think, a lot of people put too much credence on, Jesus tells us to do this, or God tells us to do that. And I'm like, neither one of them do that. They're giving you a choice. You can either believe or not believe, or you can, and if you approach stuff from the right perspective, I don't think there's, it's not going to get held against you.
Yeah.
It's like guys are like, some of the, you look at some of the really, the guys that are really hell bent on their religion, and they're like, well, it's too bad Gandhi's not a Christian. He's not going to go to heaven. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
So you believe
why wouldn't God accept Gandhi into? I mean,
fair enough.
Some crazy talk, right?
Well, I mean, I see that their side as well, but I can. I mean, a lot of people do view it as in if you're a good person, like what the world considers good, then you would. But yeah, fair enough. Now, I was just curious on your view on it and how you work through that. Scott,
I don't think I'm going to go to hell for doing what I've done.
No, I think war is a completely different game anyway. Like you've been called.
And even if I do, I'll have buddies there. They'll make the time go by fast.
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to stay away from that.
Right? I don't know.
But
it's hard to say. I mean, I'd get bored in heaven. It can't be that awesome forever.
Well, yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
I think we're going to have to go out for lunch and we'll discuss this a little bit deeper.
We'll revisit this.
Yes, we'll revisit this. We'll leave this off the show.
Philosophically.
I thought the book was really interesting. I hope you come out with it. I think it would be good for people. But I can see your side as well. But I appreciate you coming on and talking about it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm starting to warm up to the idea. So the only thing that's keeping me from publishing it, honestly, is just a little bit of fear.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So once I get over that, because I know
you've dealt with fear before. We just talked about all the pretty scary stuff you did.
No, but that's a completely different kind of fear.
Fair enough.
This is fear of my peers not liking it, and that would be like way worse. I'm like, you guys should just shoot at me.
Yeah.
It'd be way better than if they're like, God, Scott, that sucked. What
yeah. Well, if anybody listening to this show and a good publisher, contact Scott and get her done.
It's only like 180 pages too. I mean,
It took me a while to print out though. The first time I printed it on single-sided paper. I didn't print it on both sides. It was like a stuck like that. It was wild, but
oh man. That was 10 cents a sheet too.
Yeah, I know. I think I owe my company some money because I printed it at work.
That's right. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Scott.
All right, Kyle. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please leave us a 5-star review and tell your friends and family about this show. We have new episodes every other Friday. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow this show on Instagram and Facebook at the handle @FuriouslyCuriousShow.